Dear, today's story is George Catches a Cold. Let's read the story. Today it is raining a little bit. Mummy, Peppa, George, put your rain clothes on. With rains, Peppa and George must wear their rain clothes. George, yuck! George does not like wearing his rain hat. Mummy, George, you must keep your hat on. George, why? Mummy, because you must keep dry. George, why? Mummy, because you might catch a cold. George, why? Mummy, George, do you want to play in the garden? George, Mummy, then keep your hat on. Peppa, come on, George. Mummy, Peppa and George are going to jump in muddy puddles. George, yuck. Mummy, George does not want to wear his rain hat. Mummy, Peppa, George. Daddy, come inside. The rain is too heavy to playing out. Mummy, oh George, where is your hat? George, achoo! Oh, George has got a cold. George, achoo! Mummy, oh, poor little George, you don't sound well. Daddy, don't worry, I'll ring Dr. Brown Bear. Dr. Brown Bear speaking. I'll see. But George to bed and I'll be right round. Daddy, thank you, Dr. Brown Bear. Goodbye. Peppa, would George be taken to hospital and given medicine? Daddy, no, George just has to go to bed. Peppa, oh, so George is not really properly ill. George, achoo! Peppa, oh, that's disgusting. Mummy, poor George. Let's give you straight to bed. Daddy, George, you have to stay in bed for a bit. George, no! George does not want to stay in bed. George, achoo! Daddy, George, you have to stay in bed until you are better. George, why? Daddy, because you have to keep warm. George, why? Daddy, oh, because Dr. Brown Bear said so. Dr. Brown, hello, where is my patient? Open wide and say, ah. George is a little bit worried. Dr. Brown, Peppa, you are big and brave. Can you show George how to say ah? Peppa, of course, ah. George, ah. Dr. Brown, George has caught a cold. Peppa, does George need medicine? Dr. Brown, no, but he can have some nice warm milk at bedtime to help him sleep. Mummy, thank you, Dr. Brown Bear. Dr. Brown, you are welcome. Goodbye. George has been in bed all day. Now it is Peppa's bedtime. Peppa, George, are you better? George, achoo! George is not better. George, achoo! Peppa, George, please don't sneeze too loudly. This is impossible. Mummy, George, here is a nice warm milk to help you sleep. The warm milk makes George feel very, very sleepy. Daddy, good night, my little piggies. Peppa, it's so nice and quiet. It's morning. George has slept very well. George, oh, George is better now. Daddy, come on everyone, it's a lovely sunny day. George is wearing his rain hat. He doesn't want to catch another cold. Mummy, oh, George, you don't need to wear your hat. George, why? Daddy, because it's hot and sunny. George, why? Peppa, George, can you stop saying why all the time? George, why? Daddy, George certainly is better. And this is the end.